Karen,
Yes.
would you say that you understand the true nature of spirituality?
I mean, the true nature, that's kind of a lofty, I don't know.
It is.
I have an idea.
Well,
I have an idea.
we do tackle the hard topics on the show.
Yes, we do.
Okay. Well, and then in your estimation, what is spirituality?
Do you have a week?
We don't, actually. We've got about 12 seconds.
Well, we probably should hear it from an expert, not from me. I don't want to screw anybody up.
You know what? That's a great idea. So what if I told you that there is a large section of the spiritual world that's doing spirituality wrong?
Oh.
Mm-hmm. And what if I told you that fixing that is just as simple as stepping back and allowing yourself to come to the forefront of your practice? So it doesn't seem too difficult to do,
that
right?
Sounds good.
Well, today's guest believes that perfectionism is one of the main challenges of spirituality, and she's going to share with us the best way to do spirituality, right? Well, we'll dive into that and a whole lot more on today's episode of The Skeptic Metaphysicians, starting right now.
My name is Will.
And I'm Karen.
And unlike Mulder and Scully,
we both want to believe.
So we've embarked on a journey of discovery.
We've talked to people deeply entrenched in the spiritual and metaphysical world.
We've thrown ourselves into weird and wonderful experiences. I even joined a coven of witches.
And wait, you joined a coven?
Yep, all in the interest of finding something.
Anything.
That will prove that there's something beyond this physical,
three-dimensional world we all live in.
This is the Skeptic Metaphysicians.
Stop the presses. If you are a regular listener, you know that we don't like to break into the show like this very often.
So you know that if we're doing it, it's for a very special reason, and you're going to love this.
Mm-hmm. Remember Jennifer Foster, our friend of the show, who went through that spiritual awakening and now can do all kinds of really cool things? How would you like to win a free session with her?
I mean, of course I would. Who wouldn't?
All right. Well, then all you need to do is go to dropstation.io/skeptic-metaphysician, and you can enter into a drawing to win not only a free session with Jennifer Foster, but there'll be all kinds of other rewards and cool activities you can do designed to help you get closer to us and our Skeptic Metaphysician community.
And of course, you'll receive our undying love and affection.
Well, that's a given. Hey, we're going to put that link in our show notes. So go ahead and head to skepticmetaphysician.com. You'll find the link directly there if you missed it. Otherwise, dropstation.io/skeptic-metaphysician. I'll see you there. Hey there, I'm Will.
And I'm Karen.
And today we are absolutely blessed to have Kerry Kaye with us on the show. Now, a childhood of severe illnesses led her to have many encounters with death, and spending a lot of time in this otherworldly experience beyond the veil gave her access to what she describes as pre-consciousness. Now, she feels that that's the godlike state we all exist in as soul's pre-embodiment, and in direct union with God's source consciousness, she began remembering at a very young age not only who she was as an infinite soul, but who we all are and why we came to this planet and these lives. I can't wait to dive into today's topic. So without further ado, I want to welcome to the show, Kerry Kaye. Kerry, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much. It's beautiful to be here.
Oh, we are excited. I took a deep dive down the rabbit hole looking into you, and I'm excited about the conversation because what you're talking about is really right up my alley, and I'm excited that Karen you're going to learn about all that stuff now.
Oh, I'm excited too, and I don't even know what we're talking
about. Well, let's just get right to the nitty. You say that you see the false matrix to be a minefield of lies and manipulation, and that this false matrix is manipulating the spiritual community in an attempt to prevent our ascension. That is a lot to unpack.
Wow.
So let's take it a step at a time, because that's a lot.
Yeah, well, it is a lot. But, we've been living life with blindfolds on. We've been living life as if this is normal. This is the way it's supposed to be. There's nothing to see here. There's nothing wrong with this picture. When back at the ranch, everything is wrong with this picture, but we've got to have the eyes to see that. And in order to have the eyes to see that we've been living in a false matrix, we've got to be prepared for some harsh truths. And this is something that a lot of the spiritual community has had a problem with, the harsh truths. A lot of the spiritual community, they're looking for the fluff and the unicorns and the rainbows and the pretties, and they have an illusion that it's all about high vibe, baby. It's about how positive can my thoughts be? How loud can my mantra be? How vegan can my salad be? How many asanas can I do in my yoga? How many beautiful things can I say? And in my accent, I know in every country it's different, but here, if you met a hippie, that'd be very shwee, schwa, shwoo, that'd be very, how's it going? How's everything in your world? And this is all cool, don't get me wrong. I can hug a tree and be elated just like the next person, but I'm a very firm believer in seeing reality for what it is and not getting lost in the
Mm.
daydream, which so many spiritual people don't even realize that they are. And it's not that they're bad, you guys. It's not that I'm saying, ooh, the spiritual community, they're lost and I need to help them be found. It's more like, here's a truth. It's a bit of a harsh one. It's a bit of a cold, hard slap in the face, but
Mm.
most spiritual people will agree with us if we say, listen, the world that we live in is highly infiltrated in the sense that we can see there's corruption in our governments. We can see that there's corruption in our monetary systems. We can see all of the external systems and how they've been manipulated to keep humanity enslaved. But we fail to see the same thing happening in the spiritual community because we don't want to. We can't imagine. Because then we've got to ask the question, what am I partaking in that's actually not of service to my spiritual growth?
Right. So
So,
I've got to ask the question
yeah.
because it brings up that has a lot of triggering effects, what you just said, to a
Oh, yeah.
lot of people that are
Oh,
listening
yeah.
to the show right now.
Oh, yeah.
Is there anything wrong with being just like, hey, everything
I
is
was going to ask the
cool,
same thing.
right?
Please
I mean,
do it. Yeah. But like, I would love if you gave me a choice and you said, Kerry, would you rather be surrounded by 1,000 corporate bankers or 1,000 tree hugging hippies? Believe me, I'm going to be best friends with the tree hugging hippies, and I would be
not to
most
say
comfortable.
not to say there's anything wrong with corporate, anything, but I understand your point.
But this is the thing. Like, if you look at where our mindsets are very much in the like the what is wrong and the what is right, and the who is good and the who is bad, instead of however the heck you're gonna do life. It's perfect for you. There's no one size fits all. There's no
Mhm.
prescription that says this is how you've got to do it if you want to be spiritual. Some of the most spiritual people I know are in the banking industry, right? Which is awesome, by the way, because I've always said there's too many light workers who are preaching to the converted masses, and they should
Yep.
be out there in the corporate world where we actually need them to be. But nonetheless, the way to do spirituality is through authenticity. That's the key.
Mhm.
That's the key that so many people, it's so obvious and it's so simple, but so overlooked. The more
Right.
real you can be, the more automatically higher frequency you are. Authenticity. People say, oh, it's all about love. Yes, love is important, but you don't get to access authentic love until you can be with yourself in authenticity. So whether you're the tree hugging hippie or whether you're the banker, it truly is irrelevant. It's more how deeply real, how brave, how courageous will you be to allow yourself to be exactly where you are, to experience yourself, not the world, but you as you are without distractions.
Mm. So yes to all of that. Authenticity is the number one, is absolutely essential, and that makes me feel a lot better about what you're saying, because if you are authentically unicorns and butterflies, then that
Then
works
that's
for you. But if you
100%.
Mhm.
cool, but then you also I mentioned it in the intro, and I found that on your website, that you feel that these types of thought processes are actually preventing us. It's like
Mhm.
something has infiltrated this community, and is preventing us from ascending. How,
Yeah.
so how can we justify or how can we wrap our minds around both of those thought processes?
Right. Well, authenticity is the key again, because like you just said, if you are authentically rainbows and unicorns, I got to tell you, my daughter, she's 8 years old and she is so damn authentically rainbows and unicorns. Nothing in this world is going to make her anything otherwise. That's who she is right now. Yeah, it's probably going to change, but it's cool. It's authentically who and where she is. Let's take my son. He's 17 and he is all about facts and figures. And for God's sake, he's into geopolitics. I don't even know how that happened. Is he really my son?
Wow.
Apparently he is. But these mind-blowing
Did you
things
get a
happen.
DNA test done? Because make
I
sure that,
think I think I need to rule something out. The crazy thing is, this is who they are authentically as people. They're not going, hey, mom, what do I have to do to be approved of? What does the world need me to look like? And that's how you reconcile everything. It's not about, and if you look at spirituality, they've made it about a spiritual genre. That there's a certain way of dressing, there's a certain way of eating, there's a certain way of speaking, there's certain mantras, there's certain protocols that are very much geared towards how perfect can you be instead of how real can you be. There's a lot of spiritual people, and I deal with them every day. And they say to me, Kerry, I'm too afraid to get angry. I'm too scared because what if it lowers my frequency? What if I become a really bad person because I feel really bad things? And that's where my battle with the spiritual community has been. It's not about what you're doing in your own personal private life that really resonates with you. Go do that more. It's more about, can you let go of an ideal that says you've got to be ideal? And can you exchange that instead for, I've actually got to be me? And sometimes that means I'm not going to be okay. And I've got to have the courage to be there anyway.
Got it. Got it. That makes a heck of a lot of sense to me. Yeah. So it's all about authenticity and feeling your emotion, because we're all human, right? We're spirits in a human experience or whatever it is. So we're going to have moments of, they're going to trigger us. And those are the moments that are going to help us to grow. So if you don't have those, then it's difficult to grow, because I know when I'm triggered, my first thought is, okay, what made this trigger me? What is it inside me that this touch that made uncomfortable? And I'm able to process it and figure out what I need to learn from it and move forward. And then eventually next time it happens, it won't trigger me as much.
Exactly.
So when you're talking to someone and they tell you, I'm afraid to get angry or to lower my vibrations, what do you say to them to help them through that, to help them understand that that's partly where they need to be?
Okay, now I'm going to make you laugh and you're going to go, oh, geez, who have we actually invited on our show? Because my answer to that is tough. Honestly, on my website, what you're going to see is Kerry Kaye, because that's my name, and underneath it, straight talking spirituality. Because if I were to just give you straight talk and you said to me, but I'm afraid of feeling anger, but I'm afraid of lowering my vibrational frequency, my answer to you is going to be tough luck, baby, because do you know what? You're not here to be perfect. You're here to be authentic. You're here to be real. And it's gonna feel uncomfortable, and you must be prepared for that. Too many people have the mindset that spiritual means perfect instead of spiritual means authentic. So you've got to delve in the realm that society, not just the spiritual community, society told us, this is no man's land. Don't go there. Angels fear to tread. Don't go there. And it's not safe. And who knows if those emotions aren't actually bigger than you, when the truth is, we will always think our emotions are bigger than us until we know how magnificent we are. And the goal of true spirituality is to get out of the specialness and into the magnificence. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. There's a lot of people that believe that they are better than. That's what I call specialness. Special is like the people who, they're going to walk around believing that they're somehow a purer version of human because they never get angry, for example, right? Or they never feel depressed or whatever the case might be. That's specialness. But magnificence is only about 1,000,000 times more special, more magnificent, more beautiful than you would ever dare to imagine. But you've got to go through the minefield of your own fears before you get to walk there, before you get to see the magnificence. You've got to have your tough luck moment. You've got to face, oh my God, I do actually feel these things. You've got to face them, to dissipate them, to move beyond them.
Right.
And do you find that a lot of people that you work with feel like they don't deserve that magnificence? Because so much of what we're taught about ourselves is, you have to work harder, you have to be better, you don't deserve this.
Yeah. I don't have that
So
problem.
he's special.
I am. I mean, not to brag, but I might be one of those better than people out there.
Now I see who I'm dealing with. Will.
Yes,
Yeah.
and you thought you were worried about us inviting you on the
This is the
show.
minefield I have to get through.
Good luck, Karen. You got your work cut out.
No, it's obviously it's all in fun, but that is a great question.
Yeah. So there's a huge stumbling block that I see people having. And Karen, what you've asked just touches on that, because they're so conditioned to believe that they've got to, I want to use this word, repent. In other words, they've got to go into all the pain. And here I am telling you, yes, you've got to go through the pain, but the optimal word there is through, as in pass it and go out the other side. What a lot of people in the spiritual community and the self-help community, the personal growth community, what they're doing is they're delving into the trauma and sitting down inside the trauma and using that as an identity because they believe that's what they're worthy of. They believe that they've got to hold that density, when that is not what we're here for at all. In fact, sometimes it's harder for people to embrace their light and easier for people to embrace their darkness because they're conditioned to believe, yes, I am bad. Yes, I am unworthy. Yes, I am a terrible person. Whatever their beliefs are, they find it more believable, which is terrible and tragic. But they find it more believable to believe the worst in themselves than to imagine this divine magnificence.
So, based on that, what do you believe about the concept of karma? Because so many people think they're here to work through karma from past lives and it's going to be hard and, whatever. I have a different belief on that, but what do you believe about that?
I think karma is a heap of BS. I really do.
Yay! I love
you just made a best friend.
It's part of the risk.
I mean, no offense, karma people, but
right,
exactly.
right.
But
Talking about triggering people.
I know.
See, when you're straight talking like I am, I don't have the filter to hold myself back to think, okay, Kerry, how are other people going to receive you? I'm just going to blurt it out because that's the truth of what I know to be true. And that is that karma is a program of the false matrix, and it's rooted in the concept of suffering. It's rooted in the concept of pain and perpetual drawn out suffering, whereas the natural universal law, which exists around consequence, is something that we haven't really experienced on this planet. We have known, and that's very much part of the old false matrix, we've known that suffering program, and karma is a part of that. I mean, imagine that I or my children even should be held responsible for the so-called sins of their fathers. Like, this is part of the reincarnation cycle, that you're just going to land up with more baggage. The more lives you have, the more baggage you're going to accumulate, the less likely it is that you're ever going to evolve. That was the point and the purpose of karma, was to prevent people from ascending. But having said that, there is 100% a consequence, universal consequence. And that says, whatever I've put out, I am going to receive back. But this is where it gets nuanced. We weren't living in the natural organic universe, so the natural organic rules didn't apply to us. We lived in a place called the false matrix. So the false matrix rules apply to us. And that's why we believed in karma, because it was the program that we were born to. But is it universal truth? Is it pure cosmic truth? No, not at all. And we're in a transitional phase right now where we are transiting out of the false matrix back into the organic universe that we come from, which means for the first time, we're now tasting consequence. And consequence says I can get away with stuff, but I might still experience upheaval within myself.
Right. So law of cause and effect, I totally understand that. First, you are speaking directly into Karen's soul right now. So you have made an absolute best friend because you guys are very aligned with that. But you bring up a very intriguing point that, I mean, I've been wanting to ask you from the very first question I asked you, but we went down this other rabbit hole. So I need to, let's level set. What the heck is this false matrix that you're talking about? Like the world we're living in, like we see the physical, the things we feel, touch, taste, Are you saying that that doesn't exist? What is a false matrix?
Mm. It does exist. It's incredibly real. Nobody can tell you the pain, suffering, trauma, torment that you've gone through doesn't exist because you know it does. It lives inside of you. You taste your food. Of course, it's real. What the false matrix is a mimicry system. So to understand the false matrix, we've got to understand who created the false matrix. So now I'm going to take you into a zoomed out big picture perspective. At the point of original creation, we have God, who is the supreme creator of all that is. And God assigned certain, we could call it, for want of simplifying it, certain roles. So, for example, some people took the role of light, other people took the role of darkness. The group of beings who took the role of darkness, they now have a name. We know them as archons. The archons took the role of darkness for a very important reason, and that was to catalyze light. Because ultimately, light and dark are one thing. In order to facilitate creation, they had to separate. So now we had a faction of people holding light, a faction of people holding darkness, and those who held darkness became addicted to the power, or rather, I should say, to the illusion of power that their darkness gave them. These beings became so corrupted and so depraved. It's kind of, this is a very strange metaphor that I'm going to give you, but it's kind of like a politician who's been bribed by millions or billions of dollars and now telling them, listen, that's been fun, but now you get to go and live like everyone else. And the politician says, no, thank you. I like my millions and billions. I like being powerful. This is what happened to the archons. They didn't want to reintegrate. So they became very defensive of their separation, and they began to push God away. They began to see themselves as superior to the very thing that had created them. This is a psychopathy. This is a depravity that we actually see in humanity today because these archons realized, okay, we don't want to be God, we want to be better than God. But the moment we push God away, we lose our ability to create because now we're disowning a part of ourselves. So when they lost their ability to create, they said, not a problem. We will bring a group of beings into a planet which will hijack out of the organic matrix. We'll call that the false matrix, and we'll get those human beings to do our bidding. We'll get them to create on our behalf. They won't know it because if you know you're in prison, you're going to try to break out, right? So they'll never know that they're in prison. It'll be a mental prison, so they won't see the bars. But what they'll have access to is a very restricted bandwidth of energy that's going to prevent them from accessing their soul and the memory of who they are. They're going to be very fight, flight responsive. They're going to be very easily triggered. They're going to chase their own tail. They're going to argue with each other and never look up to see who the original ones were that put them in the soup in the first place. They're just going to keep blaming each other for it. So this is how the false matrix came to be. It's a mimic of what the organic universe should look like, but it's a very manipulated version of the organic matrix, and it's highly programmed. It's a barrage and almost an onslaught of very negative, very low density frequencies that we keep absorbing generation after generation until we find ourselves here scratching our heads going, what the hell is the meaning of life? Why am I here? What is this all about? That's my nutshell version of what the false matrix is.
Wow. For the nutshell, that had a lot of actual nut in it, but in a good way.
Yep.
We are so much to dive into there. We need to take a break.
Cool.
But when we come back, we are going to dive further into that. And we're going to talk about, how do you know this? Like, it wouldn't be the Skeptic Metaphysicians without asking you, how the heck do you know this? So when we come back, we'll dive into that. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Skeptic Metaphysicians. We're talking to Kerry Kaye, who is blowing our minds about archons and false matrices and perfectionism and the reason why we shouldn't be in spirituality. And right before the break, Carrie she went down this. I mean, we keep saying the word rabbit hole, but that's really the only thing that fits into this, right? Because it is such a deep conversation and we can go into so many different areas of it.
Yeah.
If you're just joining us, rewind this thing and listen to Carrie's message again right before the break, because this is where we're going to be diving into here now. Because you said a lot
A
right before the
lot.
break. You said a lot, and there was a lot of stuff that it's sometimes it's kind of a little difficult to believe, for lack of a better word. But at the same time, we've heard these messages again and again and again, and I don't think we've ever asked the question, how do we know? Like, where did you get these messages that make you so sure that this is indeed a false matrix?
Mm. Because I died and I came back and I saw it. When I was really young, well, I was incredibly ill. And I didn't realize it at the time, but being so sick for so long was the best thing that could ever happen to me because it gave me an open door outside of the false matrix. Now, to give you an idea, I spent most of my childhood in hospital, quite literally. I spent more time in hospital than I ever did at home. And that was until I was around about a teenager. So,
Wow.
in that time of serious illness, I was very often on the brink of life and death. And just there on the brink, I got this magnificent experience. Now, some people will call this an NDE, right? A near death experience. But to me, this is something much bigger than a death experience. This is a life experience. It was a near life experience. I got to go back to the supreme mind and heart that we all come from. So some would call this God. But the truth is, when you're there, it's so much bigger than God. It's like this infinite oneness, and you get plugged into, you're not separate from it. You don't experience yourself as a human being or even a separate identity. You experience yourself as part of the whole. And when you're inside the heart and mind of that wholeness, there are no questions because you're plugged directly into all that is. So you know everything in the time that you're there. And then I would get better and I would come home from hospital and I would be normal and go to school and be a human being and then get sick again and go back to God and go back home and go back to God. And so this is where I spend my childhood, backwards and forwards between the false matrix and the organic universe. So
Wow.
that's how I know what I know, because I've been there and I've seen it. And it's once you see it, it is so freaking obvious that you think, number one, how did I not see it before? And number two, how do people walk around believing that this false matrix reality is all that there is when just a taste of true unconditional God's love is enough to transform an entire civilization for all eternity? It is
Mm.
the most potent, moving, powerful, indescribable life force that ever there is. And when you're touched by it, you will never be this. You can never be the same again. You can't think the same. You can't feel the same. Everything is forever changed. And
Wow.
that's how I know what I know.
You must be incredibly frustrated walking around all these people who are blind to the realities of things, and you just want to scream, "Wake up!" Right? It's like the whole Matrix movie
Well,
all over
yeah, I
again.
was
Yeah.
going to ask, how did you cope with that as a child? Like
Yeah.
this information, these two realities that,
Yeah.
how did you handle that?
In two ways. The first is to learn to say the word okay. Like, for example, even today, people will say to me, "Oh, do you know that, for example, do you know that karma is a real thing? And this is why karma matters." And da 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 da. And I just go, okay, okay. Okay has saved me and my mental health and my sanity so much because I don't debate and I don't argue. I share my truth. And when people are resonant and they pick it up, then that's perfect. And when they're not, then that's equally perfect. So, number one, I just go, okay. But number two, when I was a child, there was a built in saving grace there. And that is that I never integrated everything that I experienced at the God level into the human Kerry until I was an adult. I only integrated pieces and parts. And over time, it's kind of like sitting and stewing in this amazing cosmic soup. Over time, it began to integrate and embody more and more and more. And then I remembered more and more and more, and I felt more and more and more. So I got snippets when I was a child, but not the full pieces of
Gotcha.
information.
The flavor didn't develop until later.
Nicely said. Exactly.
Flavor
Exactly.
Flav. All
Yeah.
right. So, okay. You mentioned that we are now leaving this false matrix and moving into an organic environment, I guess, for lack of a better
Yeah.
word.
Yeah.
And yet it feels like what you're talking about when you had your near life experience, that
Mhm.
the organic world in which you're talking about is where we go after our physical bodies pass. Is that correct?
Not necessarily, because depending on your level of consciousness, you're going to go when you pass, you're going to go to where your level of consciousness can be accommodated. In other words, what's familiar to you. So if that full flavor is not palatable to you because you're not yet ready for that much love, because let me tell you, being in the presence of that much love, it feels like you're going to evaporate into it. It feels like it's so big that nothing and no part of you will even survive afterwards. It's kind of like it's going to integrate you into itself because it's so omnipotent and so profound. So there are people who aren't calibrated to be in that frequency for whatever reason that I can't tell you, because I literally don't know. I was ready or able to be there. Most people, when they pass, though, they're going to go to a familiar frequency. Most of the time, it's a little bit higher. It's a higher octave than what they've got here on earth, but it's not necessarily to go back home to truth unless they're ready, they're capable to be in the presence of that much love.
Mm. So then if we're transitioning into that organic world now,
Yeah.
what about those that aren't ready? If we're
Yeah.
going there now anyway, without passing,
Yeah, it's gonna
Yes.
happen.
what's going to happen to those that aren't ready? And
Awesome. Yeah.
I'm asking for a friend.
Gee, I wonder if I know your friend. Well, I think I might. We could have met before.
He's very,
I
very popular friend.
His
Yes.
name is Bill.
A lot of people friends with this guy. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So we have something taking place right now called the two world split. And what that's about is where a faction of our existing population is ready and can accommodate 5D, which is a much higher level of reality than the one that we're on right now. But there will be a group of people who say, listen, I'm not done playing. I'm just not there yet. So I want to go off. I'm going to end this life and I want to go off into another 4D world because it's still a level up from where we are. This is a 3D world. So the two world split is one of two roads. It's either a 5D world, which is this planet, but a higher version, or it is an exit point where you completely exit your life, completely exit the body and the planet, and move off into an entirely new incarnation in 4D. That's not going to be the majority. I don't know how. Honestly, I don't know how, but most people are going to ascend into 5D. I say that lovingly because I've seen it, and that's why I can tell you I know that it's true. I myself can't comprehend how that mutual friend of ours,
Sure.
I
Yeah.
I can't imagine how that person's going to accommodate 5D, but apparently they can, and apparently they do. And at the last minute, we're going to see a lot of people waking up. At the very, very last minute, we're going to see a lot of people suddenly having the lights switched on for them. And part of the reason for that is because we're going to have so many people on planet Earth holding and anchoring in 5D consciousness before that final ascension point. And the final ascension point is the final separation point between the two realities or the two worlds that are brewing right now in our timeline. So we've got one single timeline, but two streams of consciousness in the timeline. One moves to 5D, one moves to 4D. But the gorgeous part of that is nobody retraces back and goes to 3D. We are, in other words, all elevating. It's just how high we elevate to.
So what's the timeline? How much time I got? I mean, we got before we ascend.
This is the question. You know, people always ask, like, so when? When is it going to
Yeah.
happen?
I mean,
the
I need to
answer-
pack.
well, this is well, pack light, because you're not going to need much where we're going. So the cool thing is that there is no time, and there's never meant to be a time prediction. And if somebody gives you a time prediction, run away, because the truth about ascension is that it's never going to come at the right moment. It's kind of like, I know not everyone's going to relate to this analogy, but I'm a mom of 3, so I can. So I'm going to tell you this analogy. It's like when people said, when are you going to give birth? I knew it was never going to be at the right time for me. It was just going to be the right time. It was just 3:00 in the morning was certainly not my right time, but that was the right time for my children. So ascension's the same thing. We can have an idea. We can have an idea that it's going to probably, listen to that word, probably take place anywhere between now and the next 10 years, which might sound like a very big landscape of time. However, we've been doing this for millions of years. So we are right here at the eye of the needle. We are right focusing in on that final ascension point. But imagine if people knew the date and time, what would they do? They'd stop growing. They'd start waiting. They'd go into limbo. They'd probably go a little bit insane, start spending their money and doing
Say
crazy
charge of the credit
things.
cards.
Yeah,
I mean, not a bad plan.
10
I'm just
years
saying.
isn't that long.
it really isn't. When we've been doing this for millions of years, 10 years is literally, that's like saying now,
Yeah.
you know?
That is like saying now. 10 years is not a lot
See,
of
I
time.
calculate everything in age of our daughter. I'm like, oh, she'll be 23.
I'll calculate. Oh my God, I'll be
That old.
Older than 23.
older. Yes, way older, but not by a whole lot. Right? So then, what's going to stop the archons or archons? Right, that's the term that you mentioned.
Yeah.
What's going to stop them from doing everything they can, pulling out all the stops to prevent us from actually getting there 10 years from now?
That's exactly what we're seeing in front of us right now. That's what we're seeing, their last-ditch desperate attempts to slow the whole thing down because they can see what's taking place. They
Will
can
they
see
ascend
that.
too?
Say that again, Karen.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I said, will they ascend too?
They're desperately trying not to. They don't want to. See,
So it's
darkness.
like
Well, they don't want to be regular people. They want to keep their millions and billions.
right, it's like
Exactly.
continuing to file
An extension on your taxes?
yes, yes. But I was going to say constantly filing appeals to try to push off
Yeah.
a trial or something like that.
Yes.
They
Nicely
keep
put.
filing for an extension and an appeal to make sure that we extend the
Yeah.
period of time that we are still not ascending. Very
Exactly. So
interesting. Quite
fear and
amazing
chaos.
parallels.
That's all that they've got. That those are the tools at their disposal, and they are using those tools of fear and chaos to the best of their ability. But eventually, when we have enough light workers on the planet, or whatever people call themselves, spiritual warrior, starseed, light worker, being of consciousness, doesn't matter what the name is, when we have enough people holding light, holding love, holding higher resonance in their body, we become very untouchable by that low frequency. And that low frequency begins to have less and less impact. That's what we're seeing already. And that's why we're seeing such a pushback from the archons, because they can see, we're losing our matrix.
So then the archons are uncanny at convincing people that they're not actually archons, but rather angels, right? So what would you say to people that are completely hoodwinked by these no, we won't ascend folks, but are convinced that they are on the opposite side, that they feel that they are the ones that are here to bring about change?
Yeah. There is so many, and this is where we started the conversation, really, was talking about how within the spiritual community, there is so much manipulation and misinformation. And now, given the scope of the conversation we've just shared, you can see why, of all sectors on planet Earth, the spiritual community had to be the most infiltrated, because this is where the powerful people are. This is where the people who can truly become a ripple that changes the course of reality, this is where they're hanging out, in the spiritual community. So what we have is a group of spiritual people who need to stop being hoodwinked. And the only way to stop being hoodwinked is to start accessing your authenticity. You will never trust the right person until you can trust yourself. In fact, you've got no business trusting anybody else until you learn to trust yourself. And that takes connection to self. That takes the getting real and the getting into the nitty gritty. There's so many people out there. And again, this is a bit of a straight talking bombshell. There's so many people out there who channel archangels, for example. And I'm not saying they're all bad and I'm not saying they're all wrong, but I am saying a lot of them lack discernment. And how many Archangel Michaels are there really? Because according to all the people who are channeling Archangel Michael, there must be about 10 million. If we stop giving our power away to other people, so Archangel Michael, who I'm channeling, is going to tell me what's going to happen, and this one's going to tell me, and that one's going to tell me. And instead, we start tuning into ourselves and realizing that, oh yeah, it's true, we are the ones that we were waiting for. Then we grow up, we mature spiritually. And when that happens, we can start seeing reality clearly. Right now, too many people have got the blinkers on. The more you can see yourself clearly, the more you can see reality clearly. So the real work comes down to that same thing, authenticity.
Yeah, that is the key word, and the difficult part is that so many people believe they're being authentic because they're going down a certain path, and perhaps in their minds they are being authentic. However, who discerns whose authenticity is the right one? I guess only you can tell. So that's where it gets muddy for me.
I think it has to also be about acceptance, because you have to really accept who you are, the good, the bad, and the ugly, to really truly be able to embrace your authenticity.
And disown no part of you. Claim all parts of you. See the innocence in all parts of you. And know that if your brain is telling you, oh, I'm authentic, if that's a message from your brain, it's not true. Because your brain is part of the imposter syndrome that we've all lived with here in the false matrix. The brain is entrained to lie to its own self. That's part of the prison of the false matrix that we were caught in. Whereas if you feel authenticity, so you're not thinking the words, oh baby, I'm the most authentic person that ever there was. You're actually,
I mean, unless you are, right? I'm just saying.
Look, I must be honest, I did forget that one person here on planet Earth.
Right. Let's not forget that person. He's important.
If you feel, and it's kind of like, there's a choking, vulnerable, raw feeling that you get when you are being so damn real with yourself. If you're there, it's not a thought, it's a feeling. And if you're in the feeling of authenticity, that you're done, then you're authentic. You're in it, you're doing it. That's how simple it is. Just don't think it, be it.
Right. Oh my God. I love talking about this stuff. This is like, the time has flown by. Kerry, this has been absolutely fascinating. And I mean, it in every single way. I not once did I search for the questions I listed down. I just had a conversation with you, and that's the mark of a wonderful connection conversation. So thank you so much for coming and opening up our eyes about these kinds of things, because that is freaking amazing.
Yes, a whole lot to think about.
A whole lot to think about. And I know that this is not going to be the only time we talk, because I know we've just scratched the surface. But if someone wanted to dive deeper into this stuff or reach out to you in any way, what's the best way for someone to do that?
Best way is my website, kerrykaye.com. And it's K. Most Americans, I love you guys, but my name is Kerry with a K, not Carrie. Like you carry your bags, but that's not me. I'm Kerry, Kerryk, kerrykaye.com.
All right. Well, we're going to put that link directly in our show notes so that you don't have to worry about whether it's Kerry or Carrie. Just go to skepticmetaphysician.com. You'll see her episode right there in the front page. Go to the show notes and you'll find the link directly laid in there. So it's easy for you to reach out to Kerry. And I promise you, you will not be disappointed. This has been wonderful. Kerry, thank you so much for coming on the show and opening up our eyes.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
And a huge thank you to you. We know that there are tons of options out there, and having you decide to come along on our journey of discovery with us is an absolute honor for us. We'd love for you to contribute by sending us a voicemail or an email from our website, or leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or any other podcasting platform that supports them. Karen and I love hearing from those that are moved to message us. It truly does fuel our passion. You are the reason we do this show, and knowing what you like and don't like help us craft the very best show we can so that we can help raise the vibration of the planet together. Well, that's all for now, but we'll see you on the next episode of The Skeptic Metaphysician. Until then, take care.